RMT, I think people say, well, you know, after NUN earlier, that RMT is the most active union going. So Eddie Dempsey is going to speak first. I've noticed that he tweeted something this week about the fourth railway package. We've got up to number 4 now. And the interesting thing was, it said that they sent solidarity to the Norwegian railway workers who are on strike because of the imposition of this from the EU. And someone suddenly woke up and said, but, you know, Norway's not in the EU, is it? So, Eddie, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's strange. It's a strange set of times we're living in, really, when you have the neoliberals carrying out more socialist policies than the left. So if you think back to the crisis, we had the neoliberals nationalising banks. I mean, that's something we've always said we should do on the left, but it turns out it's the right wing that does it. And just recently, you've seen outcry from a lot of people, supposedly on the left, at the idea that Boris Johnson was going to bin or suspend EU state aid restrictions in the event of us coming out of the EU to protect industries. And that's something we should be arguing on the left, it seems to me, fairly basic principle. And it turns out the first time I've heard of anyone in mainstream politics talking about binning state aid laws in that way publicly is the Conservative Party. So what sort of a planet are we on when this is the state of affairs? I think we've got to start off by recognising that where we are in terms of the left and the European Union in this country is we're in a very bad predicament. Corbynism, in my view, is dead. It died not long after Corbyn came into office, when he made the calculation very early on some of his principles, whether to go hard on the question of nuclear weapons and soft on the European Union, or vice versa. He couldn't do all fronts, and in his calculation, that was a decision he made. And since then, we've seen the tactics of people supposedly on the left, like John McDonnell, acting as an outrider for the neoliberals in the Labour Party, pushing ever further to the right, ever more concessions, talking radical, turning up in Parliament, waving around the little red book, and then 2 minutes later, running as fast as his Nike Air Max can carry him down to the city to tell the city that whatever happens, the Labour government will protect your right to initiate capital flight in this country. And we've seen all of that again with the stuff around Nissan. People coming out, well, you know, it's quite right that Nissan are intervening in this way. You know, there could be a situation where they're going to leave and this is going to cost us jobs and everything else. And there's been a complete acceptance, I can see on the left, of neoliberal economics. So we're told what protects jobs now is trade agreements which guarantees foreign direct investment are able to get profits out of this country at whim. They're protected against policies of any left-wing government that might come into place in terms of nationalising industries and so on. And these are all things we've got to accept as just reality. It's back to the days of trickle-down economics, which is the reverse of everything we should be standing for, in my view. But that's accepted on the left. And one of the other things we're told by so many people on the left is that what we cannot do or afford to do over questions like the EU is enter into a culture war, they say, with the right wing in this country. So for that reason, we're not allowed to talk about immigration other than to say any form of control on any type of immigration is inherently racist and leads to fascism. So if you go back to when we were having the referendum, it seemed to me the left were a mirror of the right. You had the right trying to stoke up fears in working class communities about immigration in a lot of ways, on the one hand, and then you had the left, supposedly, doing the absolute reverse of that, trying to fight an argument over the European Union on free movement of labour, saying that anybody who doesn't support the principle of free movement of labour is obviously a racist. And this to me seems to be such a catastrophic mistake. because it was the case. I mean, God forbid anyone who's read a bit of Marx or anything else, it used to be understood, or at least people were very clear on the idea, that you've got such a thing as called the reserve army of labour, and this has got a pressure on wages and trade union organisation. This happens with unemployment. We don't blame people for being unemployed, for it being a downward pressure on working people, but we recognise the reserve army of labour is a weight on wages, generally, in the economy. And when there's not enough people unemployed, as Marx said, you've got to bring surplus labour in from elsewhere. So mass migration's used. Now that doesn't mean you've got any animosity to somebody who comes here from another country. My family came here from Ireland. I grew up in South East London. I grew up in one of the most diverse council estates in the country. Most of my friends, people I grew up with and love, and part of my family from all around the world. People I work with from all kinds of cultures and everywhere else. It doesn't mean for a second that you can have an analysis of the movement of labour as a commodity, by the way. What the effect of that is on wages and trade union organisation and everything else. But at the same time say, as workers, that's what unites us, is that we've got to show solidarity with each other, and everyone's got to join a union, we look after each other. But that now, if you say that, apparently now that makes you a racist or you're a fascist for saying that. And it's so crazy. I mean, you've only got to go back to like Marx, when he was advising the German textile workers not to come and scab on the textile workers in Scotland at the time, when the owners there were trying to bring labour in from Germany, and he was saying to them, do not allow yourselves to be used as the mercenaries of capital in the struggle of labour against capital. So I can't understand where all this comes from. In one regard, for people on the left. A lot of it, I think, comes from pressure. I think the left that we talk about now in Britain is largely liberal. It's not socialist at all. Absolutely. It no longer believes in things like having nationalised industries, or trying to, as I always thought socialism was, take into democratic ownership the means of production and exchange in this country. I mean, we are Democrats, we all believe in democracy, but we don't think democracy ends when you go into the voting booth, or it stops at the door, the factory gate, when you're going into work. We want democracy in there too. We want to vote on whether we own our industries or not, on whether a factory closes or not, or where we put our resources in this country, whether we put our resources into manufacturing arms to go and bomb other working class people elsewhere, or whether we want our resources to go into building hospitals and schools for our kids. Now, you can't do any of that stuff without control of the country, the democratic control, the sovereign democratic control of the country. And I want to read you a quote. This is very important. I came across this the other day. I've read a bit around this stuff previously, but this was a lovely quote that I hadn't heard before. And it's by Friedrich von Hayek, who you all know, the father of neoliberalism, the inspiration for so many of our enemies. He said, international federation means neither national nor international government could have the powers for socialist planning and economic life. The abrogation of national sovereignties and the creation of an effective international order of law is a necessary complement and a logic consummation of a liberal programme. And that appears to be what the EU is, at its heart. I mean, you get all the dross about it being the European countries coming together after the cataclysmic period of the war to make us all live peacefully with each other, neatly ignoring what happened in Yugoslavia, neatly ignoring Ireland, neatly ignoring again the EU's role in supporting open fascists in Ukraine and the destruction of that country, neatly ignoring the imperialist character of the European Union through instruments like the Cotonou Agreement. We're all told we're racist unless we vote in favour of the EU. But if you look at the Cotonou Agreement, which shackles all of the former colonies in Africa to the former imperialist powers that make up the European Union, you see some remarkable things. It's not just the horrific trade policies that sees huge dumping of produce, surplus produce, on African markets, destroying local markets, meaning people have got to try to make this horrific crossing in the sea to then be stopped by European-funded border forces and everyone else. So bad it's in breach of actually UN conventions on people seeking basic rights as refugees. But in that agreement, you've got stipulations whereby the major multinational corporations who effectively are the European Union and who run the European Union get to sit as an equal partner at the table with the former colonial power, the former colony, and the three of them sit round the table and must agree the economic development of each of those countries in order to remain part of that partnership, in order to trade with the European Union. So you've got a corporation and corporations effectively having the same sovereign power to make decisions on the economic developments of countries in Africa as their own governments do. Now, I cannot see how anybody with a socialist perspective could support such naked imperialism, because that's what it is. And then you've got the drive towards the militarisation. You've got Ireland, which voted against the Lisbon Treaty, was made to vote again, under spurious notions that have their neutrality respected, and they're entangled in PESCO. They're now entangled in EU peacekeeper missions in Africa. You're seeing Irish troops injured in Mali, defending access to French corporations to the uranium reserves in Niger, next door. You're seeing, they're having this big 2020 conferences coming up, where they're discussing the future prospects of the type of wars that a European army and a European federal state could be engaged in. And who do they see as their enemies? They see their enemies as China, as Russia. Russia, by the way, a European country. You know, we've got all this stuff about a European identity people are supposed to feel now. You get hundreds of thousands of people marching up and down here with blue faces and European flags. People identifying as a European, but we're all supposed to be terrified of Russians, and aren't they Europeans too, and not allowed into the club. So, what we're seeing is the creation of an empire. Tony Benn was absolutely right. There is an empire being created. We should have no part of it, and we should be campaigning against it. But where we are at the current time is we've got a position where we've basically managed to get elected into the leadership of the Labour Party in this country, a hostage. We've got a socialist at the head of the Labour Party, but he is a hostage, unfortunately. And what we're seeing at the end of that is the complete abandonment of democracy in this country. 17.4 million people voted to leave the European Union. That vote is being disrespected and overturned. I don't know how this Labour Party is going to go to the country in any election and say to people, you should vote for us. In working class areas up and down this country that voted against the European Union. What you had in this country at the time was a split. I like to say, and forgive me anyone of the more middle class persuasion in the room, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. It's about who you root for, not where you're from. But you had a general thing, I think, in this country where you had a more middle-class, liberal type of people who were more concerned about what people were thinking, what was in their heads. But the reality was, you had the working-class people more concerned about what was in their bellies. And that's why they voted leave. And now you're going to have a situation where you've got a Labour Party going back to these working-class areas who've had 40 years of neoliberalism, have had their industries destroyed, have had their Labour Party taken away from them, have had their trade unions vanish along with their institutions, so they don't even have the framework by which they can express their economic grievances with the world. They've been absolutely trashed. They had one opportunity to stick two fingers up against the ruling class in this country, and by God, they took it, and now they're being told, you're wrong. You were racist, you were ignorant, you didn't know what you were doing. It's impossible to do anyway, so we're going to have to do it all again. And so you get this is the other rhetoric you get coming out, that Brexit in fact is impossible. It's not just a bad decision, but it can't happen because of all of these complicated reasons that are beyond the comprehension of normal people who voted in this country. Right? But what we've really got is a parliament that doesn't want to leave the European Union, and the populace in this country which does. And so their solution to this crisis is what we need is another referendum. We've got to ask the people again because we can't do what they told us. My view is we need a general election because we've got a parliament that won't do what we told us, so we need to get rid of it. We need to put them up in front of the people, stand them up and let them stand for their convictions and vote them out. And I fear what's going to happen to the Labour Party. We just had all of this past couple of months. I spoke at events, there was a lot of activity going on, talking about coups going on in the country. You know, the Parliament was prorogued. I saw Paul Mason was calling for a general strike. And I had a bit of a laugh. I went into my workplace that day. And I went around the station in Paddington Station in West London into the depot, the mess rooms. I said, lads, we're all out, that's it, we're going out. It's happening, there's a general strike. They're looking at me going, what's wrong with you? I said, Paul Mason, we're being paroled. We're being paroled here. Paul Mason has told us we've got to come out. They've gone, who's that? They don't know what's wrong with him, he's gone mad, you know. Can you sort my rosters out, they want to know? Can you get your rosters sorted out? So, one minute we're having a general strike. The next minute we want a general election now, there's a coup happening and everything else. And the minute a general election is offered, they go, hang on, no, whoa. We go, not yet, you know, whoa, easy. And so here we are. And I don't think Corbyn's going to last past Christmas, I'll be honest with you. I don't think he's going to last past Christmas. I really hope he does. When he came on the ticket as a potential candidate, I wasn't a member of the Labour Party at that time. For a laugh, me and a couple of my mates, we got a campaign going to register people to vote for him. In our view, it was an opportunity to take a slash in the neoliberals' music. We just have a laugh at this and see how far we can go. And lo and behold, he became leader, so we thought we're going to have to push this and see what happens. But I fear for this project. I can't see it going much further. Not least because you've got John McDonnell. What a snake that bloke turned out to be. There's no point sugarcoating it. He's been a friend to my union for a long time, and I have to say, you know, he's often spoke very well. But there's no good waving, you know, the red book around in one hand and stabbing socialism in the back with the other. That's and that's where we are. And when it comes down to the actual nitty-gritty, why do we want to leave the European Union? We want to leave the European Union because we want socialism in this country. That means we have got to take back the industries that the multinationals hold as private property into common property. We've got a right and a say on how our resources are allocated. We can't do that in our industry, the railway industry, because of the European Fourth Railway Package, which compels, not asks, compels all member states in the European Union to offer up their passenger railway services to competitive tendering, which is privatisation. People say, oh, well, you know, well, France has got, you know, they've got a state railway, so Germany, they haven't. They've got a privatised freight services, and they've got a state-backed company which is being privatised in preparation for the Fourth Rail Package, which has seen our brothers and sisters struggling in strike action against in France. You've seen local, regional services in France being privatised, in the words of the French Minister for Transport, to comply with the Fourth Railway Package. You tell that to people in the Labour Party and the Labour movement here in this country who are so addled by the European Union, they go, oh, that's not happening. We get bloody is, they're on strike. They're not mad in France, they know what they're doing. And it's the same with Norway, they're in the economic area. Therefore, they're expected to comply with single market rules, which includes a Fourth European Rail Package. You've seen it in Germany. You had a regional administration in Westphalia, tried to give their regional railways contract to the national state company, which is a company that operates in a privatised, marketised system, the contract, and they were taken to court by a Dutch operator. They were sued successfully. Arbellio, the Dutch company, won. So these are the people wonder what the single market is for. I don't know what they think the single market is for, if not to have a privatised single market in every area of the economy they can. They want a single market in railways, they want it in energy, they want it in coal and steel. You know, that was one of the first ones they wanted, was coal and steel, which is why you can trace a lot of the problems that are going on at the moment with our own steel industry. So how long before they want it in health? How long before they want it in education? You know, what do they think this project is about? That we're going to remain inside the European Union. That's what's never talked about. There's a lot of talk about what's going to happen if we leave the European Union. The sky's going to fall down. You won't be able to get a Lemsip. We're all going to die of the flu because all of a sudden, you know, we're not going to have any medicine left in the country. We're not going to be able to feed each other. So they talk about that, but no one talks about what happens if we stay in the European Union. If we stay in the European Union, we're on the road to becoming a region of a European federal superstate with a European army. There's only 4 areas of policy left in the entire policy makeup of all of the member states of the European Union where countries have still got the right to veto, effectively, and that is tax, benefits on welfare, foreign policy at the moment, and one other that escapes me, but you'll bear with me. They're already talking about moving tax policy to qualified majority voting, which in fact means that Germany and France will set the tax standards for every European member state. How long before it's defence and war? How long before it's the benefit system? Because that is the direction of travel it's going. And the thing that nobody wants to talk about is the fact, who is the core of the European Union? It's Germany and France. They're running the shop. And these corporations are running the shop. That's effectively who it is. Your Airbus, your ThyssenKrupp. These are the people that run the European Union and Germany and France. And now you're seeing they're talking about relaxing the fiscal stability rules so people can extend the amount of borrowing they can have to their GDP beyond the rules that have been cast iron set for so long. They're now going to relax that. Why are they going to relax that? Because German manufacturing is in trouble. Their car industry is in trouble. They didn't relax it when Ireland went bang and every citizen in that country was made a debt slave to the tune of €40,000. They didn't relax it when Greece was on the rack, when Cyprus was on the rack. They didn't relax it when they were overturning democracy in Italy and appointing a leader there. They didn't relax it when youth employment hit 50% and above in Spain. They didn't relax it, but now they're relaxing it because BMW are struggling to sell a few motors. So that shows you where the real power is in this organisation. It is an empire, it's not ours, and we should oppose it. Thank you very much.